I think the Knicks can get there. And if they do, that is the optimal spot for them to not only, have a competitive first round, but maybe get an upset.
So let's transition to the Knicks. They're always a fascinating team. I'm a Bulls fan, so I'm just watching the Knicks just by habit. So right now, I believe they're sixth in the Eastern Conference. Where do you see just how they fit in the playoff race moving forward? Just because the Brooklyn Nets have gone through a lot of changes, and right now you certainly have your power teams in Boston, Milwaukee, and Philly. But yeah, I think there's basically room for some movement at the top. So are you optimistic that the Knicks can really make a run at the top of the Eastern Conference? Like, where do you see their expectations so far?
I think the top three, regardless of where they finish, will be those three. It'll be Boston, it'll be Milwaukee, and it'll be Philly. But I think from between 4 to 6 is anybody's game right now. And the Knicks are in sixth place. They're 2 games in back of the Nets for fifth at the time of this recording. And the Nets won't be a pushover. I like the pieces that the Nets got in the Kevin Durant trade, but I think the Knicks can catch them. They have one more game against the Nets coming up next week. I think the Knicks can get there. And if they do, that is the optimal spot for them to not only, have a competitive first round, but maybe get an upset. Maybe if they see a Cleveland in a 4-5 matchup, that is probably their best chance of winning in the first round. So they have 20 games left. It's probably the worst time to go into the All-Star break because they won 5 out of their last 6. The Josh Hart acquisition has been tremendous. It's going to give the Knicks bench a huge lift. Jalen Brunson has transformed this team. Julius Randle playing at an all-star level. So I think the Knicks can certainly climb up a little bit. And if they do, I think they can make some noise.
Can you talk more about Jalen Brunson and just the impact that he's had on this team, the way the offense runs, and especially, the last month, he's been incredible. Can you just tell the difference in the team since he arrived this year?
Yeah, speaking of a guy that should have been in Utah, and had he gotten in that game, wouldn't have been wasting time like Giannis and all these other guys. Giannis goes in and dunks the ball, then sits out for the rest of the night. Just ridiculous stuff. But anyway, the last 20 games, Jalen Brunson averaging 30 points per game on 46% shooting from downtown. He's been absolutely electric. It just seems like when he got the All-Star snub, he played even better. And as I said, he's transformed this team. This team hasn't had a point guard in over 10 years. And since Julius Randle has been here over the last 4 years, the Knicks have really needed another guy that could take a lot of pressure off of him, a guy that can close in pressure moments and clutch situations. And that's who Jalen Brunson has been. And he's been hot. His momentum has been riding high since that playoffs last year with Dallas, when they upset the Phoenix Suns, they upset the Utah Jazz, and he did a lot of that without Luka Doncic. And that's when you started to see, okay, Jalen Brunson as the guy is a serious problem for the league. He's a threat at all 3 levels. He's leading the league in catch and shoot 3-point percentage as well. So he can play off ball, but on ball, he's even better because the way that he can attack the basket, the way that he can get into the paint, and from there, use his footwork, use his size, his physicality. He's not big, but he's strong. So the way that he can get into the lane and move guys off of their spots to get to his spots. And hey, if you got a guy coming on him, he's got counters for you. He's got a counter on a counter on a counter. So it's just incredible watching him work. And he's a guy that Julius Randle has been able to play off of, but also the team can rely on him in crunch time. He's in the top 5 in the league in clutch points. And it just seems like when the game gets tighter is when he plays better. So he's given this team a tremendous lift.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up on Julius Randle, a player who, of course, don't need to tell you, has been polarizing for the Knicks. Do you think one of the, other than, of course, competitive success, as much as you can get it in the playoffs and beyond, do you think one of the goals of this season moving into the offseason is to kind of build Julius Randle up, look for potential moves in the offseason, or is the fit with Jalen Brunson working out well enough that you see him in the long-term future? Where does his status kind of stand right now?
Well, it seems like they have a little dynamic duo forming right now. And so I think for this regime under Leon Rose, they want to continue to win. James Dolan has gone out and interviewed with the media lately, and he says, look, he wants to make the playoffs. They believe they can make the playoffs, and so because I believe they're on an upward track, they're going to keep this team intact as much as they can and add to it rather than peeling it back. Now, how far will they go? I think that'll be determined when they can ultimately land the superstar of this team. Now, Jalen Brunson's a star and Julius is a star, but I still feel like they need one more piece to crack that top 3 in the East. But right now, look, they're playing well, man. 6 games over 500. They won 37 games last year. They're almost there right now at the, technically the halfway mark, but not really. They have 20 games left, so they should be able to surpass that number. And Julius Randle is a big reason for it, man. He's leading the league in first quarter points, always jumps out the gates hot. And as I said, Jalen Brunson is really taking a lot of pressure off of Julius Randle. Last year was hard on Julius because I believe there was a lot of pressure on him to repeat the success that they had in the season where they had the 4th seed in the East. They made it to the playoffs first time in 8 years. He was an integral part of that. He was an all-star, most improved player, got a contract extension. So there was a lot of pressure on him specifically last year to repeat that. And in the Knicks' attempt to get him some help, they went out and got Kemba Walker. They went out and got Evan Fournier, but those guys just didn't provide enough from a shot creation standpoint, from a playmaking standpoint to overall lift up the team. But that's why Jalen Brunson is the biggest X factor this year, and it's helped Julius Randle tremendously.
When you look at the success of this Knicks team as currently constructed, they have their first run that you alluded to earlier when they were the 4 seed. Felt like, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, felt like, a very, very try hard team, got a lot of extra wins in the regular season from that extra level of effort. Felt like that postseason, there are a lot of matchup problems that teams could plan for in the playoffs. Of course, with Jalen Brunson on the team, this is a very different team. Do you see them having a lot more advantages or a lot more tools in the toolkit this time around with him and any other factors that you're seeing?
Yeah, because on top of Julius Randle, who is a solid shot creator in isolation, now you have Jalen Brunson, who's an elite shot creator in his own right. And so you have that dual threat, and that's going to cause teams problems. You're going to have to pick your poison. You're not just going to be able to key in on Julius Randle and force the rest of the supporting cast to beat you. That's what the Hawks did in their playoff matchup. And the Knicks their supporting cast just couldn't deliver. RJ Barrett didn't shoot the ball well in that series. Reggie Bullock, he was a 40% 3-point shooter in the regular season. He didn't shoot well in that series. They didn't have much help off of the bench. Emmanuel Quickly and Obi Toppin are rookies, and so they were a little bit wet behind the ears. But now, as I said, you have 2 all-stars, or I call Brunson an all-star, but you have 2 all-star caliber players in your starting lineup. And then with the bench, you have Emmanuel Quickly, who's playing like a 6-man of the year candidate. His 3rd year in the league, he is the quarterback of this defense, and he's been shooting the ball a lot better as of late. His floater's back. His floater's kind of been his claim to fame. I believe he's shooting about 53% off of his floater. Defensively, he's getting the guys organized. He's really like the quarterback of that defense. And so the maturity of Emmanuel Quickly from his 2nd year to his 3rd year is really going to lift up that bench. And then Josh Hart, man. Josh Hart has been incredible for this team. And so I think defensively, they're going to give teams a lot of problems. We'll see about Obi Toppin, especially when it comes to playoff time. But I think this Knicks team is going to be vastly different than the team that you saw 2 years ago, because they're going to be well balanced in the starting lineup. And then defensively, they're going to be able to get after it a little bit better, especially off the bench.
So do you see, you mentioned earlier just about the Knicks, they're one piece away of landing that superstar. With this core, does that make it more lucrative for a free agent to choose New York, as we've seen other times, other superstars pass? Do you see, this core being the tipping point in landing that superstar eventually and, making their way to the top of the conference, you think?
Sure. Yeah, no question about it. But will it be a free agent will be the question. I'm not so sure, because if you look at the trends in the league nowadays, guys are getting traded. They're signing those super max contracts, those max contracts. And then when they're tired of you, then they're asking out. You look at, Donovan Mitchell. Luka Doncic has signed his deal. Joel Embiid has signed his deal. Devin Booker has signed his max deal. So all these guys, they're reading up, and as they should. It's good business to do that. You get the extra year of security, and 30, 40, $50 million more. And then, when things go sour, then you get traded. So they will be a viable candidate just by the fact that, yes, they are a competitive team, but it's not easy. That's the hard part, is trying to get that guy. And look, for whatever reason, the Mitchell trade didn't work out for them last offseason. So now we'll have to wait. They still set up pretty nicely with their draft capital. They have 11 first-round picks over the next 7 years. They have a lot of young players. The team is still a very young team. The cap is still flexible. They'll have some contracts coming off the books next year. So they're still set up well. The question is, who will be the next piece? And that's always the hardest part.